Can you start?
Yes.
Yes, Pradeep.
I welcome President of Bengaluru ICCS Chapter, Dr. Brajesh Soni, to welcome the gathering and the guest.
Namaste and good evening to everyone. And I'll start with the thanking everyone for making it happening. And I would like to make one thing clear to everyone. This is 7th consecutive meet of Bangalore Chapter, ICCS Chapter. And welcome everyone. And now I'll give the stage to Mr. Anirudh to formally welcome and introduce our prestigious guest of the day, Mr. Ravi Chand, and we'll start on time. Over to Mr. Anirudh.
Namaste to everybody on this Tuesday. And it's late Tuesday for Ravi ji. Sorry for that. Yeah, so I would take this opportunity to introduce Ravi ji, our esteemed guest, for today's discussion on Girmitiya'S for identity in Indigenous India. So a short bio and introduction on to Ravi ji. Ravi Chand ji is a film and TV director, producer, and also a writer in Melbourne, Australia, on Indigenous studies and cultural traditions, ancient traditions in India. He was born in Fiji and of Indian heritage. His ancestors are Girmitiya, trace their ancestry back to to the times of British Empire, where indentured labor was well prominent across the globe, and many people were transferred to different lands across the globe to do the biddings of the empire. And he would be in a better position to explain his experiences and also talk about his ancestors better. So, and he's a passionate advocate of screen stories and also motion picture grounded in indigenous Indian, of course, Sanatana Dharma, India's civilization, and also Girmitya identity that dismantles racist Indian stereotypes connected to colonial literature. In 2023, Ravi also attended the World Hindu Conference in Bangkok, which was held in Bangkok, Thailand, which hosted over close to 2,000 delegates from over 60 countries to discuss and to debate on issues connected to the global Hindu Dharma. And he was invited to speak about indigenous voice and its representation on the screen. In 2025, he completed his master's on film and TV from Australia's top-ranked university, the University of Melbourne, with first-class honors. And includes some seminal works such as his direction on the Bharatanatyam Natya, and his movie on yoga, which is called Namaste Yoga. I'm sure he'll be talking about all his works, which has also been broadcast nationally on Australian TV and acclaimed by Australian Indian media as well as one of the most authentic portrayals of Hindu life in a Western country. And I would like to hand over the stage to Ravi ji now to take it forward from here. Thank you, Ravi ji. Thank you for your time. You can please go ahead. Thank you. Thank you all for attending today's talk.
Thank you. Namaskaram, everybody. I'll be talking about my background is my ancestors are Girmitya, and I'll explain a little bit more about that a bit later, and how that is linking to my quest for Indigenous identity in India, and also my work that also works towards that as well. Before we begin though, I'd like to just acknowledge the traditional owners on the lands which I come from today, which is the land of the Bunurong people of the Kulin Nations, and I pay my respects to the elders past, present and emerging. I recognise their continued connection to country and their role in caring for and maintaining country and waterways over thousands of generations. This artwork here is by an Indigenous artist called Safina Stewart. The Bunurong people, part of the Kulin Nations in Victoria, Australia, divide their society into two main kinship groups, the Bunjil and the Wa. Bunjil is a wedge-tailed eagle, recognizes the creator spirit of the Kulin nation. The Bunjil acts as the leader and the protector of the people in the land. Wa is a raven or crow, often described as a guardian or the protector of the waterways. This painting is by, as I said, the artist Safina Stewart. It is of the Bunjil creator lovingly watching over, protecting, providing, and participating in relationship with his creation. It beckons a response to the invitation to be part of the relationship with him, living in connection with each other on the land. Bunjil, the eagle hawk, represents the creative spirit. The set of the three wavy lines represented is the Yarra River in Victoria. The campfire circles symbolize families and communities of the Kulin nation gathering together. The straight lines are paths and relationship that connect people with each other. And the three circles and lightning represent the power of prayer, worship, and relationship with the Creator. So today, just to give you a rundown of what I'm going to be going through, I'll go through my I'll begin with my personal history and how this journey of assimilation and disconnection from my Indigenous culture or from Sanatana Dharma and even from being Indian as well actually eventuated, particularly living in a place, a Western country like Australia. And then a significant life moment that actually happened that changed everything for me. I'll go through the Girmitiya and some stories of the Girmitiya. They are often called indentured labourers, and whilst it was indentured labouring, it's a little bit of a misnomer as well, because when you look into the way that they were actually treated, they were enslaved on sugar plantations. I'll go through some of my film projects, and then I'll talk about the pathway into a feature documentary that I'm working on that we are looking into exploring whatever we can as wise of what the Indigenous connection to India is and what Indigenous India actually is, and what that also means coming back onto Indigenous lands such as Australia, which it has its Indigenous culture has remained unchanged for 65,000 years. So my cultural disconnection from Bharat is one of many Indian diaspora around the world I resonate with, particularly younger generations. It's one of assimilation, loss, and profound decolonisation, and one that I haven't finished yet. A week from my 12th birthday, my mother I waited for my mother to come home and pick us kids up from school, but she never came. The entire school emptied. I remember just standing there and wondering what was going on. To this day, I become extremely anxious if there is a chance I may be late to pick up my son from school. And that's because we found out that my mother had been killed in a car accident when she was hit by a speeding van on the way to pick us kids up from school. And she was 37 years old. After my mother died, I remember the adults arguing, then all of a sudden contact stopped and we were estranged from my maternal family, and I never saw any of them again. When I was 5 years old, when we arrived into Australia from Fiji. I couldn't speak English that well, and my accent was very strong, as you can tell by my Australian accent. In school, the kids were laughing at me and were happy around me when I first started, and this is when I had the Fijian Indian accent. And they gave me nicknames, and I was so happy because I thought I'd made some friends at school. But when I went home, my poor mother had to tell me that those nicknames were actually racist slurs. And over time, my English got better, but my Australian accent got stronger. And when I went to speak in Fiji Hindi, I got laughed at by family and friends because of my accent. As a result, I sounded like I was a white person trying to talk in Hindi, in Fiji Hindi, and I stopped talking it. So I really struggled with my identity growing up, and I felt like this pressure to assimilate all or nothing into an Australian culture, an Australian way of life, because the way the Indians were portrayed on TV and film industry here in Australia wasn't good, and particularly around the world. I remember watching Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom and just feeling excited that I would see this representation of Kali Mata and just being so absolutely distraught at seeing that representation of this is how the West actually thought of us. This had a direct, this representation had a direct impact on my life. Early in high school, I was subjected to a lot of racism on a regular basis. And I was no pushover. I regularly got into fights until it came to my attention that they were actually triggering me, and it was a game to be how racist they could be towards me. It wasn't about how racist they could be. It was about getting the biggest response from me. And with that, the racism got a lot worse. Some of the racism from the students were actually from children that were the teachers, that were children of teachers. Then later in my life, I changed my appearance, and I realized now I did this subconsciously. I recognize now I did this to become more intimidating as I possibly could. It was better to be feared than to be targeted. And currently now, with the rise, particularly of those of us, the Indian diaspora around the world in Western countries, feeling this incredible rise of Indian hate around the world, my physicality has saved me on many occasions, but it doesn't change the fact that I'm despised for just existing as an Indian person. And that hate is also coming from my son. But then 24 years later, after I found out that my mother had passed away, something truly incredible happened that changed every molecule in my body. I found out that my maternal grandma, my Nani, who I thought had passed away decades ago, was still alive and waiting for me in the same house in Fiji. And Nani could speak fluent Tamil, Hindi, and native Fijian, but no English. So the first time I went to speak to her in Hindi, I was so nervous. I thought that she'd just be ashamed of me, but she was just so happy to hear her grandson talk, particularly because we share a common bond in the fact that my mother has passed away, and obviously my mother is her daughter. It was because of her I started speaking Fiji Hindi again, and I started questioning my roots and my history around where I came from, because Nani accepted me for who I was. She understood that life wasn't easy, and above all, I was her blood. And when you lose a parent in such a traumatic manner, you never tend to dream of the future, because as a child, you understand that anything can be snatched away from you at any given moment. But I dared to dream life with Nani, my son, and myself. Nani was there so I could, she could help me pass on our roots and all the stories that she had of Girmit and of where we came from. On my last visit to Nani, I'd seen her a number of times, but on my last, she passed away 30 minutes before I could see her in the hospital, and she never got to meet my son. And I felt like such a failure as a father and as a grandson. How could I pass on the magic of our culture and our roots without my Nani? I searched online, joined Hindu Facebook groups, rang temples, and faced vehement abuse online for asking questions. And a lot of the temples just seemed too annoyed to deal with me. And if I wasn't doing it for my son, I would have given up. So my ancestors are Girmit. And I'm just checking, I'll come back to that one. My ancestors are Girmit. So what that means is Girmitiya is a mispronunciation of the word agreement. It was a loophole that was used after slavery was abolished. 5-year agreements with impossible labor quotas, tricked by the British into South Africa, the Caribbean, Mauritius, and Fiji had the highest suicide rate. On the 14th of May, 1879, the first ship, Leonidas, arrived in Fiji, and the Girmit system ran until 1920, with over 60,000 Indian men, women, and children that were enslaved. Across colonies, across all the colonies, there were over 1 million Girmitiya'S. They were raped, beaten, whipped, killed, and given food with maggots that were meant for animals. Many tried to swim back to Bharat. They were told Fiji was not too far away from their village, and as a result, many of them drowned. Children as young as 7 were classified as adults and made to work on sugar plantations. Many children in their hundreds died on these plantations as well. My Nani's 24-year-old Narini's story is just one of many. And just a warning, I'm purposely not censoring the details of this because it doesn't do justice to Narini and what she suffered, but just very mindful of if you've got children in there as well, that if for whatever reason anyone needs to jump in for me to skip over things, I can, and I'm very mindful that we may have children listening as well. She was sent to Narini was sent to a sugar plantation in Ndroga, Fiji on the 16th of August in 1910, and she gave birth prematurely. Her baby died 4 days later on the 20th of August 1910. That same day, overseer Harold Bloomfield told her to return to work. When she couldn't, Bloomfield forced her to work, and as a result, she began to bleed and was too weak to stand. He then kicked her, grabbed her by the hair and dropped her several times on a heap of stones and beat her with a stick. Afterward, he told her to wipe the blood from her face and go to the hospital. She was just left there unconscious with a hospital 5 miles away. It was a Girmitiya man that found her unconscious and carried her to the hospital. 8 months after Narini's assault, the case reached the Supreme Court on the 24th of April in 1911, with Narini still hospitalised, suffering from infections of her intestine with horrific injuries still at that stage. Despite this, Bloomfield was acquitted, despite no longer permitted to continue his role as an overseer, but was permitted to continue office work on the plantations. All this happened under the sugar plantation system owned by CSR, Colonial Sugar Refining Company, which still operates today. They have never made any statement about the Indian violence the company was built from. Many descendants of Girmitiya feel like to this day like a forgotten child of Bharat. Being Girmitiya feels like you're in a perpetual state of spiritual homelessness, forgotten by your motherland, not welcome as descendants of slaves on your current one. Although many Girmitiya Hindu pujas and rituals remained in a 200-year time capsule, there are incredible Hindu temples in Fiji, as well as Tamil Hindu firewalking festival has been practiced for almost 100 years, with devotees walking across hot coals in an act of faith, devotion, and a sacred vow. Learning the violence done to your ancestors and your people was an incredibly horrific experience for me. From Girmitiya, I went to the horrific colonial violence in India and felt incredibly ashamed for not knowing and deeply saddened by the suffering of my people. As I went deeper, I began to see the patterns, the resilience and strength of our culture, our people, our ancestors, the same old colonial systems used against other Indigenous peoples around the world, an erasure of knowledge, history, worth, and a blatant masquerading of Indigenous knowledge systems as Western technological and social advancement. One of them that was glaring in the face was the appropriation of yoga. So in deep collaboration with community and elders around the world, I center my voice and to create stories around our culture that I knew would have made a significant difference to my self-worth growing up if they were around. The first was Namaste Yoga, and this is Namaste Yoga here. It was broadcast nationally on ABC TV. There are private screenings with Hindu organizations around the world. We are now working to make Namaste Yoga free around the world in collaborations with Hindu organizations in time for International Yoga Day this year. Namaste Yoga is about 10-year-old Shiv, who is ashamed of being Hindu, and when he gets into a fight at school, the only way to avoid suspension is by doing mandatory lunchtime yoga classes. Cue, he is appropriating homeroom school teacher Miss Blanche. who is a self-proclaimed yoga guru after doing a 200-hour yoga course. It is about the cultural appropriation of yoga and the effect that it has on the self-worth of Hindu children when their culture is appropriated, commoditized, and then sold back to them. The second one, a project that we did, was another one called Bharatanatyam, which was broadcast also nationally in Australia on ABC TV. And on the broadcaster's Facebook page, it received over 8,900 likes. Bharatanatyam is a short documentary about an incredible Tamil family who banter about what it's like to work together as a Bharatanatyam family and their mother as a guru. We are also working on a feature film called Coconut, which is based off my Master of Film and TV capstone film of the same name. It's about 19-year-old Dev who, after the recent death of his grandfather, his Aju, he becomes best friends with his non-English speaking grandma, his Aji, after they teach each other how to swear in Fiji, Hindi, and in English. Its theme centers around the power of language and connection to elders. It reflects the story of how I connected with my Nani. Our feature documentary, currently titled 5-Year Grandma, which is about how my Nani reconnected me to my language, my culture, and how her legacy continues to grow as I travel through India's indigenous heartlands as an ancestor of Girmitiya to find a true cultural collection to the homeland of my original ancestors. It's also a love letter to my 9-year-old son about his place in the world and for him to understand what it means to carry the privilege and responsibility of Indigenous stewardship. For me, this search as a Girmitiya descendant is not just about tracing bloodline. It's about recovering relationship to land, community, language, and ceremony, and to ways of knowing that what colonialism tried to erase. In that sense, Indigenous India is not just a location on a map. It's a living civilization, inheritance held by its people, place, practice, and its responsibility. This journey is a commitment to cultural research, Indigenous knowledge preservation, and carrying forward ancestral knowledge across generations in a medium such as film that can be readily available for future generations. Even if I never find the exact village or community where my ancestors are from, reconnection still matters. The research is clear that culture, country, community, spirituality, and Indigenous knowledge can strengthen well-being, belonging, resilience in the face of colonial trauma, colonial loss, and racism. Generations of Indian and Indian diaspora continue to search for that belonging that goes beyond the Western lens and definition of what Indigenous is for us. Colonialism has severed language, land, memory, and kinship. Our feature documentary isn't just about membership of a specific people, such as a particular Adivasi or scheduled tribe community, because those are distinct peoples with their own histories and internal forms of belonging. Like many Indigenous people separated from their land, language, and kin by colonial violence, Girmitiya descendants can retain that inheritance through a rupture. My search is not to borrow someone else's identity, but to recover my own Indigenous Indian one with humility, evidence, and relationship. It's about recovering what colonialism interrupted and erased, and doing that with humility, rigor, and respect. My search, this is about reclaiming Indigenous identity and giving diaspora communities something assimilation, racism designed to steal, a proper sense, a deeper sense of worth, belonging, and ancestral strength. So co-producing with me, I have Tiriki Onus, a feature having him alongside me as co-producer gives the documentary something far deeper than creative support. Tiriki is an Indigenous Australian academic, artist, performer, and filmmaker and cultural practitioner. He is the Pro Vice Chancellor of Indigenous at the University of Melbourne and continues at the head of the Whelan Centre for Indigenous Arts and Cultural Development, and is the co-director of the university's research unit in Indigenous Arts and Culture. He directed the award-winning feature documentary Ablaze, which you see here, which premiered at the prestigious Melbourne International Film Festival and explores the story of his grandfather, William Bill Onus, and his contribution to Aboriginal rights and filmmaking history. Tiriki's work is grounded in Indigenous story, cultural continuity, and responsibility. He understands what it means to use film to recover what colonialism tried to erase. His guidance helps us keep this project honest. He helps shape the lens so my search for Indigenous Indian identity is not approached through extraction, but through a relationship with humility and accountability. For me, that matters deeply, because this film is not just about where I come from, it is about the search for the truth in a way that remains centered in an Indigenous way of seeing, knowing, and belonging. Also producing with me is Roz Walker. Roz adds an incredible amount of experience and weight to this project. When someone like Roz comes on board, it brings real confidence to that work. What I think is especially exciting is the kind of stories that she's helped bring to screen. Everybody's Omar, which is a moving documentary about a filmmaker grandmother as she navigates dementia, care, memory, and unexpected online fame with real tenderness. Roz produced Into the Deep, a chilling documentary that begins as a portrait of a Danish inventor, Peter Marsden, and it turns into an unflinching account of a murder of a journalist, Kim Wall. It actually premiered at the World Cinema Documentary Competition at Sundance in 2020 and is available on Netflix as well. Roz is a producer who can hold in intimate stories with care whilst also operating at the highest international level. So as I was saying, this documentary is not just a search for my village, it's also a search across Tamil South India and Northern Indian Girmit belt for living communities, knowledge systems, relationships to land that may help me discover what my ancestors have lost and what they carried, and also what can be recovered. There are a number of, there's such a vast knowledge of an array of Indigenous knowledge that's within India. And so one of the things that I was talking originally to ICCS about was about moving forward in that with support from those that are within this community as well, and guidance and any other support to move in that direction forward. I don't want to come into India and say this is, and land in there and say this is what we're about to do. It's about working in collaboration with community. All of our work is done with a lot of collaboration and consultation before we even land, and years before we even begin shooting. I'm happy to take any other further questions at this point in time. I'm just going to stop sharing my screen for this moment. Namaskaram. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Ravi. Let me start with my question, and then others can also raise their hands, and they will be unmuted and they can ask the questions. My first question is, till what level politically the Girmitiya'S have been found their importance in Fiji or any other nationalities, other countries?
Girmitiya, particularly in Fiji, so they're almost like at one stage close to 60-70% of the population were actually Indian. And I think also in other countries like in South Africa, particularly I think in Kenya or Sudan, it was very similar as well. What that also brought was Indians, Girmitiya, coming into Indigenous lands and also fraught with colonial structures that were actually built to cause conflict between Indigenous cultures and the Indians that were there. As a consequence, particularly in Fiji, there have been several military coups there before, and particularly a lot of my family have been attacked and had to leave Fiji. And now I think the population of Indians in Fiji has dropped to something like, close to 30 to 40% now. There have been a number of very violent Fiji coups.
Yeah, thank you, Raviji. And I have a question on some internet findings about the language of Fiji. It says like mostly it's the combination of Awadhi, that is kind of Bhojpuri, and Tamil. So I could clearly see the Tamil connection in the Fiji, but how come this Bhojpuri? This is geographically completely different, and how it
So I guess from the South India is very specific to me. So my nani was Tamil, and so the majority of those that were Girmitiya came from North India. So particularly from Uttar Pradesh and Bihar. And so the language that you have is a mixture with whatever the local territory that they're from. So whether you have Bhojpuri, Awadhi, and also bits that are very colloquial to Fiji. So there are words in there that are very specific to Fiji. I've talked to people that in Trinidad and Tobago, and I can clearly understand them. Their Hindi is very specific, and the accent is very specific to ours as well. But they have Dutch words in there because they were colonized by the Dutch. So it's very specific to those regions in that manner. It also does sound very different to through Hindi, and it for me, I can anyone can instantly pick it up. Fiji Hindi in particular tends to have a lot more slang. It tends to have a lot more swearing in it as well, because that's how they had to, when they were in the sugar plantations and they had to survive, that was a means for how they would find the mental strength to survive.
Yeah, thank you.
Hello.
Hi. So yeah, I'm Sharmila from Netherlands, not Ireland. So,
Sorry.
yeah, no worries. No, so though, as Pradeep mentioned, that my husband is also from Fiji Island. He actually is from Lambasa. So that's where he was born and brought up. So like fourth generation's been away from India. So ever since I met him, I was trying to figure out where exactly his roots are in India. So as you mentioned that your grandma was from somewhere from Tamil Nadu, so maybe Tamil speaking. But do you know the one who speaks Bhojpuri? Do you know where exactly, not exactly maybe, but where around, in and around which part of India are they from? And the last I got to know from relatives that they boarded from Bay of Bengal, that's where the Britishers asked them, boarded them in the ship from Bay of Bengal, and then they reached to Fiji. But where exactly is that? I still have that. We still have that question in our mind. So I mean, language is all mixed up, as you mentioned.
Yes, and also like a lot of the immigration passes that actually they had, some of the information wasn't written correctly or was falsified in order to get people onto those ships. So it sometimes can be difficult to figure out where you actually trace that family tree back. I think the Australian National University in Canberra has really good records that, because Bridge Lal was there as well, and Bridge Lal was a notable academic on Girmitiya. There's a lot of records there that I think most don't have, and it's a good point to start. But I found it sometimes a little bit hard to get in contact with them. I've been trying quite a lot. And also, like, there's also other people. I think there's another academic called Satish Rai, who's also done it for a number of people. We're taking their immigration pass, and then if it doesn't line up, so if they came with a roadblock, they look at all the other parameters that are around there to try and figure out, okay, whose mother or whose father were they from, who were their in-laws, and do they all match up? And then they try and work their way back from there. There have been some successful tracing back to the original ancestors, but Yeah, I think like unfortunately there's not like a definitive answer on that, because I'm also searching for that exact same thing as well.
Yeah, right. So we've been also trying very hard, but and also coincidentally, so your surname is also Chand, like Ravi Chand, right? So my husband, he also writes a Sarvesh Anish Chand. So is that Chand a very surname that everybody picked up from wherever it is, or something to do with the family trees, the same, like writing Chand as a surname?
Yeah, I think it's also like I've had this conversation with Nani and also with my father as well about surnames. Sometimes, like in Fiji, like from Girmitiya'S sort of ancestors, depending upon how life panned out for future generations, some of them come from like 2-3 generations back, come from extreme poverty. So surnames just wasn't a common thing. So I have my paternal side of the family is probably the largest of anyone that I've ever met. I've never met anyone that has more aunties and uncles than me, and that's because my Aji had 18 children, and those 18 children, some of them share different surnames, but their first name is the same. So Chand is an identifier, but it's not necessarily like a straightforward kind of identifier as well. But yeah, Chand is a common surname in Fiji. So is I think Patel as well.
Right. Okay. So as you mentioned that if I really want to know where exact data, then I need to go to the Australian University in Brisbane. No, not Brisbane. Canberra. Okay.
Yeah, they're a
All
good
right.
place to start. And I'm hoping through this documentary that what we can do is if we can track the way that this is done, then for generations of people, of Girmitiya people, make it a lot easier to be able to find this. We can path the way forward. There are people that have done, as I was saying, like Satish Rai is another person that's done that a number of times as well. And a lot of these academics tend to be in a lot of the Girmit Facebook groups, and you can find them in there.
Yeah. Like I'm in one of those groups. So yeah, but this group is, I think, just lying in the corner. So there's no activity much happening. So yeah, okay. And this is the first time also I got to know that you mentioned the Dutch. It was a Dutch colony as well once upon a time, right?
In Trinidad and Tobago. Yeah, Trinidad and Tobago. Yeah, and the Caribbean. Through the Caribbean.
There, not Fiji.
Not Fiji, no.
Okay, so same like Suriname, no? They were Dutch colony of Suriname.
Correct. Yeah.
Thanks, Sharmila, for interacting with Ravi. We have two great scholars with us online. One is Dr. Shashi Balaji. She is the professor, the former professor of Delhi University, and now the dean at Bharatiya Vidya Bhavan, New Delhi. I want Shashi ji to interact with Ravi ji if she needs to.
Yes. Namaste, Ravi ji. It's a great pleasure to meet you, to hear you, and learn from your experiences. My understanding of Girmitiya'S, our Pravasi Bhartiyas, it goes back to 1972 when I was a young girl, and my father he knew a lot about the torture, the pain, the suffering, and how they suffered and how they survived, and what was the basic foundation, what was the basic things that they could survive. All these things my father used to speak in just without taking a breath, that how much torture was there and how high positions did they reach. And the first time in 1972, so for example, I remember there was someone from Mauritius. He was at that time, I'm just forgetting the name, but he was a very high profile person, and we had given a public welcome to him in Shimla in Himachal Pradesh. And later on, if you must be knowing about an NGO that is Antarashtriya Sahit Parishad, ARSP. Do you know about it?
No, I don't. No.
Oh, this is not good for us that you do not know about us. So ARSP was mainly founded to work for the diaspora, especially the Girmitiya countries, to establish connections and work on them and help them. And recently from Bharatiya Vidya, we are very well connected with a few countries. In ARSP, I worked as a joint secretary for a couple of years, and now because of my busy schedule, I said sorry, I cannot take it forward. A few years ago, when abolition of indentured laborership and something like 100 years were celebrated, then I had curated an exhibition. It's a small exhibition, a little bit of research involved in it, and there are around, I think, 50 or so photographs from different parts of the world and different documents that we have there in the exhibition that was displayed. And you see, there is a memorial because our friend was asking about from where they left. There is a memorial built in Calcutta. That was the main port from where all these people had left, mainly. Although a big number of people went from UP and Bihar, but a small number also went from Tamil Nadu and that areas, Tamil-speaking people, I should say. So I was so shocked to hear you that the population is reduced to 40%.
Yeah, I have to check the exact numbers, but it
is reduced. It is reduced. A few years ago, there was our ambassador, Mrs. What's her name? I'll send you. I'll share my number and email with you so that we can communicate. And we have very good connections with especially Trinidad people. In Trinidad and Tobago, there are ashrams, there are temples, there are Hindu schools, and they are preserving their culture very, very well. I know about the torture, about the way it was so difficult to preserve not only the culture, but even from generation to generation, it became so difficult to preserve. So recently, 2-3 years ago, we gave training to all the Pandits in Trinidad, Tobago, and then they were so much interested in Indian culture that they requested us to give a course on astrology. Now we did that. Now they want advanced astrology, advanced Paraite, all these things. They are happening, but they are very, very powerful people. In Mauritius, the situation is much better than Fiji. Yes. And Trinidad also, and also Suriname, I think it's better than Fiji. So there are many things that we have to discuss, and you have made films, what I understood, about your history, about the whatever sufferings they had to face, and what is happening, and the Fiji bath, for example, the language, because it's a mixture of Fiji words and Hindi words, and Tamil and Bhojpuri, and because in those countries it's quite clear they are more Bhojpuri speaking people, and of course they are mixing with the French, and in Mauritius, for example, French were dominating, and in Netherlands, you are from Netherlands, so there are a number of people from Trinidad and Tobago who has shifted to Netherlands.
Yeah, so I would love to continue having conversations with you. It will be wonderful. I think there's a lot to talk about. There's plans that I've also put for a feature documentary, a feature film that is about the Girmitiya'S experience.
I will share the photographs that I have. We had collected from various sources, doing some research in various countries, requesting people to share their documents, photographs, numbers, photos of the shapes and the hardships. There are many things. So that I can share with you. And recently now in America, my daughter-in-law, she's bringing out a children's book on Girmitiya.
Oh, wow.
And it's almost complete. The final proofing and all these things is happening. And
then I think Shashiji and Raviji, you have to meet personally, so that there are a lot of things can happen with your personal interactions. So I request Shashiji, I will share your Ravi's number with Shashiji and Shashi number with Raviji, and you can take it.
the numbers. You can exchange the numbers. We have a small library at ARSP specially dedicated to Girmitiya countries, and the institution was long ago established, and some work, of course, has been done. And
we welcome Ravi to Bharat soon once.
Yes, of course, of course.
Ma'am, one Vanessa has raised her hand. Yeah, you can go ahead.
So you were just talking about Trinidad and Tobago, and Vanessa ji is from Trinidad and Tobago.
Okay.
Welcome, Vanessa ji. Yeah, please take it.
Namaste. Yes, I represent Trinidad and Tobago. I heard a few details that were not quite correct. We were never colonized by the Dutch. It was mainly British, Spanish, French. Nowadays, we only speak one language, really, English. I know Guyana was colonized by the Dutch, and they speak a lot of many other languages, including the Bhojpuri as well, and the Dutch, the French, and so on. And locally, currently, we have a Hindu Prime Minister, Kamala Prasad Biseswar. This was the second time she's been elected. Yes. But I would say that there is a lot of racism here towards Hindus that was manufactured primarily from causing divisions between the former slaves, descendants, the Africans, and the Indians. So instead of looking at the common indigenous ancestry, one group was pitted against the other, and they were made to feel that indigenous Indian laborers had easier conditions and that we got land freely rather than we worked very hard for it. And there is a prevailing notion that, we deserve to be robbed and looted and attacked and subjected to criminal activity. So whereas the population of Indians in Trinidad used to be probably around 50%, it has dropped drastically in years. A lot of Indians have migrated due to crime, due to a lot of racism in this country. A lot of the Indians here are very secular and apologetic. They are not proud of their Hindu identity. They, a lot of them have converted to Christianity. There are a few strong Hindus, yes, but I am not very happy or pleased with the direction. I think that the Hindutva sentiment, the sense of nationalism and pride in being a descendant of Bharat, even though we are far away, we could be stronger in ties and community. I've seen a declining. There is someone called Ravi Ji here as well. Every time I hear your name, I'm thinking about him. He has a Kendra here, and he really tries very hard to establish that sense of identity, which was taken from us. There's a gaping void. We don't know, a lot of us don't know our correct ancestry, who our grandfathers, great-grandfathers, what their real names were. So we are really feeling, like drifters. And one of the things I wanted to find out is what do you think can be done about cultural appropriation, such as with the yoga that you mentioned? How can we prevent it from being misused? Is it that we can establish some kind of certification to authenticate different yoga schools so that it will not, misuse our culture? Because essentially it's like a parasitic kind of, it aims to just colonize us all over again and wipe us out, eliminate us by taking over our identity and claiming it as their own and not really giving credit where it's due. So something has to be done to authenticate these things and establish our identity. I think a lot more could be done. So that's what I
Yeah,
wanted to
Vanessa,
say.
thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much for your comments, and happily very happy for you to
You're
also correct on the language there and the colonization. Thank you very much, because I'm not an academic in any way, but I all your points are very, very valid, and similar things have happened in Fiji. That's why a lot of the population in Fiji has dramatically left, and those that are still there, majority that are still there, don't have the financial means to be able to leave Fiji. That's why they're still currently there, and they face the very similar issues of what you're talking about, and many of them are my family as well that are remaining there. So I really do empathize with that. I'm and exactly the same formula, and that's what we want to talk about through the documentary as well, is that there's this colonial formula of divide and conquer, particularly with Indigenous communities and the Girmitiya'S communities that they on the lands that they were on. And going back to yoga and how do we challenge all these sort of things, one of the things that I've realized is the entitlement of whiteness, the entitlement of capitalism, the entitlement of just extraction of colonization. Often when you tell them they're doing the wrong thing, they really don't care. And they will continue to do it because they can make money from it, and they will erase it because they have that entitlement that they feel they can just take. So through the stories of what we're creating, Namaste Yoga was the prime example of that, where it was broadcast on Australian TV, and it created conversations, particularly even at our premiere. I'll give you an exact example of one that happened. There's a 20-year-old psychologist that we had on board on our crew to make sure that they were taking care of the actors that were there, because they're 10-year-old kids and dealing with bullying sort of themes in there. And she said to me that she brought her mother to see the premiere, and the first time they had seen Namaste Yoga. And on the way driving home, they were extraordinarily quiet. And her mother, for the first time, asked her, "Has something like that ever happened to you at school?" And she said, "Yes, I had faced exactly those things before. People had made fun of me wearing my bindi. People had done, a whole heap of things around her being racist." And what it does is these film stories, because they're so powerful, if they're created well, they can be very powerful conversation openers between parents, older generations, elders, and younger and current generations. And so what we're doing through these films is we're providing a platform for the real knowledge to get out there, and working on developing educational campaigns, educational packs that we can get out to schools around the world. Because one of the things that happened when Namaste Yoga went live on TV was that schools here in Australia, teachers watched it and really liked it, and they decided they wanted to show it in the classrooms, and it was helping a lot of Indian children, particularly those that are facing racism, feel better about themselves. But the problem with that was the teacher who has no lineage or any understanding of yoga would then Google what yoga was about and then try and teach about yoga in that way. So what we're trying to do now is we're working with Hindu organizations around the world, and had great support, particularly in the US. In June, we will release Namaste Yoga free on YouTube, so that we can open up those conversations and have educational packs and a way for people to get in contact with us, so that we can get that out to schools and do all that sort of work as well. I feel like trying to go head to head against racist colonizers often is like banging your head against a brick wall. They are stuck in their way. What I do is create stories so that our own children, our own generations, and future generations can look at the true knowledge of what exists and have pride and resilience and strengthen that to rise above the noise that's there, so that they know what's being said isn't true. And when you can clearly see it isn't true, it gives them the strength to be able to stand up for themselves as well. And so a lot of our stories are talking to those things about, it almost role plays how children can stand up for themselves as well. So Namaste Yoga, all the other stories are one of many that we're trying to get out for the specific purpose to create self-worth for future and younger generations. So that's our tactic in the way that we're planning to do it.
Hi Ravi, thanks for your valuable time. I'm just trying to understand that, are you trying to trace the ancestry? If so, why can't you do a DNA profiling plus an archival records?
Look, but
DNA
it's
alone
not,
probably cannot give you full answers, because probably 4 or 5 generations the genetic signatures are lost. So maybe
Yeah,
a DNA profiling plus an archival record like ship records, plantation records, indentures, immigration passes, maybe can give you some idea of where do you belong to actually.
well, that's exactly what we'd look at moving forward, and get help from those that are expert in those areas. But also, I'd prefer to lean towards those that come from within the community as well. And it's also not just about, I guess, about DNA as well. It's about, as I was saying before, about that, what that Indigenous knowledge is, the connection to Mother Earth, the connection to cosmos, the connection to several things that aren't about the materialistic world as well. So that those sort of knowledges and what's actually existing and the broad depth of that, to understand that as well. A lot of Indian, particularly diaspora, that are, several second, third generations, have become so separated by that because of the pressures of assimilation and racism that they have had to face on a daily basis. So it's reconnecting them to more than just DNA. It's about a cultural lineage and making sure that that continues for future generations.
Namaste to all. Special namaste to Ravi Chandaji. The lecture delivered by Shri Ravi Chanda was definitely, it offered a deeply reflective and thought-provoking exploration of identity, memory, and cultural belonging within the context of the Girmitiya diaspora. One of the most compelling aspects of the lecture was the way it connected historical displacement with a contemporary identity formation. The Girmitiya experience, rooted in colonial migration and exploitations, continues to shape the cultural consciousness even today. The lecture also shed light on the complex relationship between diaspora and indigeneity. Another significant takeaway was the emphasis on cultural preservations through memory, language, and art. The Girmitiya community has historically maintained its identity through traditions, religion, and oral narratives, despite of all the displacements. The narrative, Mr. Ravi Chandra, his work builds on this legacy by translating these elements into contemporary cinematic forms. He's been doing this. I would like to say that the lecture was highly insightful and intellectually enriching. It successfully bridged the history, cinema, and identity studies, offering a nuanced understanding of the Girmitiya experience. It can encourage the audience to reflect on thematic of belonging, cultural continuity, and the power of storytelling in shaping the identity. The session was not only informative but also emotionally resonant, leaving a lasting impression on the listeners. So I would like to thank you, sir, for having given this lecture. And in fact, we really, it has opened up a new thing for us to understand the new culture and how the whole thing has come all the way, long way. Thank you so much.
Namaste, sir. Good evening, everyone. As we conclude this enlightening session, it's my honor to propose the vote of thanks on behalf of ICCS Bengaluru Chapter. First and foremost, we extend our deepest gratitude to Mr. Ravi Chand, sir. Your journey from Fiji to Melbourne and back to the roots of India is not just a personal narrative. It is a powerful testament to the resilience of the human spirit. Thank you for sharing your quest for identity with such passion for our shedding light on the profound history of Girmitiya'S. Thank you, sir. And I express our sincere, heartfelt thanks to Anirudh sir for arranging this talk with Ravi Chand sir. And heartfelt thanks to Shashidhar for technical help and for giving this Yuvaka Sangha for providing us with this wonderful venue and the necessary logistic support to make this event a success, both in person and online. And a heartfelt thanks to our audience members with both the present here in seminar room in this virtual attendees joining us via Google Meet. Your engagement and thoughtful attention are what make these cultural dialogues meaningful. Thank you one and all.
Thanks, Ravi. Thanks, everybody, once again. We want you to be in Bengaluru and also in Bharat as early as possible.
That's the plan. Thank you. Namaskar.
Yeah, thank you, everybody.